Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the video. I'm GetGoodGuy, and this weapon made my KD skyrocket. Yep, I hadn't been using it at all, but now I absolutely love it. It's possibly my favourite weapon in the game currently, which is really saying something considering how attached I am to the AGM42. But before anyone starts typing out KD isn't everything, yes, I know that, but it is a stat that indicates if you're getting more kills than deaths, and that can be a very good and helpful thing, obviously, if you're still playing to win and focusing on the objective. And so this weapon has had me dropping people left and right. It's the Selbstlader 1906 and it's from the Recon class. Now these aren't highlight plays you're seeing today. I'm literally going to show you how I play with this thing in my normal gameplay. Just the kills and sections of the gameplay lined up in chronological order. I want to show you just how good this thing can be on a normal basis for the right player. And perhaps you could be that right player, potentially now or after some practice. I also want to quickly say here that this is console footage. It's not aiming with a mouse. This is with thumbsticks. Now I have at least pretty decent aim, but I can only imagine what could be achieved by a really skilled mouse and keyboard user with the precision that allows, combined with the lethality of the Selbstlader 6. Plus, some of the footage you'll see today is right when I first came back to playing Battlefield after spending a lot of time on Apex Legends, and the weapon was unupgraded as well. So I was rusty, and the gun was just the base model, and it still absolutely destroyed people. This is one of the few weapons that I've picked up without specializations, and I immediately loved it, and it didn't feel clunky. I'm so impressed with it. Now the Selbstlader 6 was a Tides of War challenge reward, but if you missed it, don't worry, you can simply go and buy it from your company with company coins, and I highly advise you go and do just that. So, long-term subscribers will know that I played quite a lot of Scout in BF1. In fact, a decent chunk of you actually came across me from my sniping videos, but I've barely touched Recon on BF5 because I found the bolt-action rifles to be underwhelming, at least on console, due to many factors. And I personally thought of the self-loading rifles as being basically less versatile semi-auto rifles. But the Selbstlader 1906 has opened my eyes to what I've been missing out on. And so to be specific, it isn't actually my overall KD that this weapon has significantly boosted, although it has gone up since I started using it, but it's my class-specific KD, which you can find in your profile section on BF5. Now my overall KD is currently 3.44, as you likely noticed from the video thumbnail, but that was mostly due to assault and support play, which I have a 3.6 KD on for both of them. But my Recon was literally down at about 1.4, or somewhere around there I believe, like literally 2 kills per death lower than my average, which is terrible. Like that's an awful drop in form, obviously, just from using a different class. And so I just wasn't really interested in using the class, and thus it doesn't take too much playtime to significantly affect the overall stat, and just using the Selbstlader 6 for a few sessions has shot my Recon KD up to a 3. Which is likely only going to increase more so with continued usage, and thus will also increase my overall KD. I think this weapon is absolutely fantastic in the right hands. You might say that means I'm bad with bolt-action rifles in this game. You can you can say that if you want. Whether that's true or not, it doesn't change that this weapon can be awesome, and it doesn't change that I've been doing some serious work with it. So by now you may be saying, well, okay, I can see that it looks powerful, but what actually makes it powerful? Well, it's a 2-shot kill. Not just to the head, a 2-shot kill to the body. This is one of the main draws of using a self-loading rifle such as this over the semi-auto rifles of the assault class. Combine that with a rate of fire of 164 rounds per minute and you can have an extremely fast kill time. For the record, that RPM is faster than that of all the bolt-action rifles, obviously, and is faster than the ZH29, although the ZH29 can fire at the same rate of fire, but you're then locked to using that specific specialization, which ups it to 164. Now it is slower than that of the RSC and the Model 8, but it deals more damage than them. For me, it sits in a really nice sweet spot for damage and rate of fire. Now obviously with only 5 rounds per full reload, you have to be able to hit the target consistently. This makes for a real skill cannon. If you can't aim to a pretty high degree and hit your shots consistently, then this likely isn't a good weapon for you. And the same goes for if you can't control the range and situations in which you take your engagements. It's kind of a strange concept of being a very versatile weapon for the right player and extremely unversatile for the wrong player. What do I mean by that? Well, with only 5 rounds, the wrong kind of player isn't going to be able to get too much done in a wide variety of circumstances. It's not spammable, you need fast reactions for close quarters, etc, etc. But for the right sort of player, you can achieve extremely fast kill times regardless of range. At this point, I'd really like you to pay attention to the efficiency of the kills being shown today. How reliably you can pick people off at a high tempo once you get used to the intricacies of the gun. If you can generally traverse the map in a way that allows you to stick between mid and long range most of the time, the Selbst-06 makes very easy work of enemies. But make sure you stick near cover for a reload, as you'll be doing that often, or to duck into if you start missing shots. The idea being that you kill one or two, duck into cover and reload, pop out and kill one or two, over and over again. It's also a fantastic choice to combat snipers, as in bolt-action rifle users, not just at mid-range but at long range. If you wish, you can be more mobile than a bolt-action user in a 1v1, whereas most bolt-action users will plant their feet in order to line up the shot, as they only get one at a time. You can strafe around a bit to be a hard target for them to hit, and take advantage of having 5 bullets and only needing to hit 1 or 2. So that's long range covered, all the way to short range, but remember, only if you can aim and react quickly. This weapon can be lethal for almost any situation, but it absolutely relies upon the ability of the user. This is not an easy gun to utilize to its maximum potential, but if you can, or if you practice to get to that point, it can be extremely rewarding. This is by no means an overpowered option, but that's part of the fun for me, and likely for some of you out there. It requires effort in order to be effective, and if you can do that, then it just feels good. It's satisfying landing that big damage and putting those enemies on the floor. And in some ways, this makes it better than bolt actions in my opinion, for a lot of players, due to the fast follow-up shot of the Selbst and the low body shot damage of bolt actions in BF5 compared to BF1. I certainly think that's the case on console at least, where it's harder to aim for consistent headshots. But obviously, extremely skilled snipers can do damage with bolt action rifles, such as Maxic, the Rue Shot, Stode, Fabian Chills, etc, and those players may well prefer bolt action rifles for that instant lethality. But for most players, a self-loading rifle is going to be more user-friendly. In fact, that whole concept is why we see so many semi-auto rifle users. Now, the defense for bolt-action snipers having low body shot damage in this game is that there's attrition, and thus a lot of people are often running around with less than full health. And this absolutely applies to the Selbst as well. You can get a reasonably high amount of one-shot kills due to this, especially if you hit a headshot and get that damage multiplier. So again, you only get 5 bullets, but they can be super lethal when used effectively, and 5 fast shots is more than 1 slow shot from a bolt action. So if you don't play Recon due to not getting on with bolt action rifles, then this might be the answer for you. This could genuinely have some of you playing Recon for extended amounts of time. Or say you don't use Recon, but you want some of the rewards for ranking it up. This weapon could be a much easier way for you to go about doing that. But let's cover some of the other values of using the Selbst-06. Well, it's a great peeking weapon. So what you can do is you peek out and shoot before utilizing cover again. This allows you to drop big damage quickly whilst minimizing the chances of you taking damage. This was a concept that I started to really focus upon while playing Destiny some years back, while that was my main game. In that, using a hand cannon or something was a great way to peek and do damage, whereas using an auto rifle required you to maintain fire on the enemy, thus meaning you also couldn't stand in cover and reduce the possible damage you could take. That concept absolutely applies to BF5 as well, so take advantage of it with the Selbst-06. It also does great chunk damage for teamfights, so if you land one shot, the enemy can easily be picked off by someone else shooting at them. This makes for super easy assists and just helping your team. Furthermore, to break it down, 3 of the most common situations you're faced with in this game are snipers, prone supports, and assault semi-auto users. And this weapon allows you to combat all 3 of those well if you use it effectively. That's not to be ignored, that's a huge plus point. Whilst at the same time, you can take advantage of most enemies not being used to facing 2-shot deaths, as self-loading rifles aren't all that commonly used. Usually, the enemy don't take that much damage from one shot unless they're being hit by a bolt-action rifle, but you can then land a very quick follow-up shot that they just aren't prepared for. This high damage per shot also creates many less instances of making someone weak and them then getting away, when compared with using 3 and 4 shot kill semi-auto rifles with the assault class. Then on top of that, think about how well this weapon fits the way this game is designed. Wide open spaces, large maps, long sightlines. It's almost as if it was designed for the Selbst-06 in some ways. Then you need to consider that you're a Recon. You've got somewhat of a more run and gun option than a bolt action rifle, and you can utilize Recon equipment. So AP mines are at your disposal, and they're pretty broken at the minute to be honest. And that's probably going to change soon, but the point remains, even once they're nerfed or altered, it's something that you can use that you don't get when you're using semi-autos with the assault class. But more importantly than that, there's the option to use a spotting flare. You can fire that over a busy area and just go to work taking the enemies out, knowing exactly where they are, and with the option of actually being aggressive because you've got a self-loading rifle, not a bolt-action rifle. Plus, you can still use the revolver, remember, for extra close-range lethality. If you want to, you could just choose to use the revolver at close range all the time. But let's specifically talk about how I set up the Selbstlader 1906. Well, I always choose to use the mid-range scope. This is up to you, of course, but for me, it's fantastic for this weapon, but also fantastic for this game. You can check areas easily, as the visibility in this game is kinda suspect in most players' opinion, and it makes for more consistent damage landed at range because you can see more easily. But what about the specializations? Well, this is the setup I go for. It's totally up to you what you prefer, but this is my chosen setup. I'll take you through my logic and the pros and cons of each decision. So I use quick aim as it's way better for me than a bipod. It allows me to be much more reactionary and aggressive. If you want to go prone and hit easy 2-taps, then go for the bipod, I guess, but for me, it's an easy choice for quick aim. I then use the right side for the middle section so I can have barrel bedding and lighten stock. This means I get improved accuracy in ADS, which is important as you're almost always using this weapon in ADS. Plus, you get 60% faster movement speed while in ADS, so you're essentially doubling down on the weapon's strengths. If the reload speed of the weapon bothers you, or you find yourself needing to switch to your sidearm a lot, then pick the left side specializations. But honestly, a 15% faster reload isn't all that impressive, and if you're needing to switch to your sidearm regularly, then this likely isn't the weapon for you anyway. But the choice is of course yours to make. And then on the bottom, I take recoil buffer just to make those fast 2-taps even easier with less upwards recoil. But a lot of people will tell you to go for high velocity bullets on the right side to make it easier to hit targets at range. I fully understand that, and the weapon is perfectly usable without recoil buffer, so I'd advise maybe putting some time into both and seeing which you personally prefer. At some point I may too switch to high velocity bullets as well, we'll have to see. And so that's my full rundown of the Selbo 6. If I had to give one single piece of advice for it, it would be to just get used to the amount of time it takes for the recoil to reset and simply fire at that tempo. This can make for consistent, fast and easy 2-tap kills. I highly advise you give this weapon a try if you haven't already. It won't be for everyone, but if you connect with it, you'll be very pleased you gave it a chance. I'm gonna let a bit more of my gameplay play out now with some background music, as I know some of you have enjoyed that before, plus it gives you the chance to just take a look at what the gun can do without me talking over it if you so wish. If not, then that's absolutely fine. Thanks for spending a few minutes with me here today. If you enjoyed the video, then feel free to like, subscribe, turn on notifications and join my Discord server in the description and my pinned comment. I'll also throw up the board of awesome at the end of the video for the epic people who support the channel on Patreon. And with that all said, I'm GetGoodGuy and I'll see you next time. Laters.